The story of how American liberals reimagined poverty on a global scale and designed and implemented a global war to eradicate it brings together histories of poverty, development, liberalism, and Cold War-era U.S. foreign and domestic policies. The Poverty of the World makes 3 claims. The book argues that, for liberals, poverty was reborn as a global phenomenon in the years after World War II, in no small part because of the immense contrast between a poor world and an affluent America. Further, it asserts that the development discourse, especially the concept of underdevelopment that emerged in the 1940s, provided the intellectual building blocks of their concept of global poverty. Finally, it contends that in the years between 1945 and 1968, liberal political elites advanced an alternative vision of an empire of affluence to contest the strategic one that the United States pursued. Some of the evidence for these bold claims about the centrality of poverty fighting to the post-war American project comes from a rather quotidian historical observation. Poverty, as a social problem, occupied an outsized place in the imaginations of Americans in the years between 1945 and 1980. Indeed, according to Google Ngram, Americans and fellow travelers from abroad like Murdahl spilled more ink on the topic of poverty during those years than at any time before or since. What makes this especially strange is that all of this poverty talk coincided not with a period of economic crisis and social unrest, but with an era of unprecedented American affluence and social mobility. In his synthesis of anti-poverty efforts in American history, historian James Patterson notes this odd fact, writing that it is much easier to observe that poverty became a subject of debate than to explain why. One explanation is surely that poverty as a concern had long been the exclusive domain of liberalism, and that liberalism reached the zenith of its power in American politics during this era. While the poor have been a target of moral uplift in the Anglo-American tradition dating back to the 1600s, it was only in the middle of the 19th century that poverty became what historian Alice O'Connor calls an objective, quantifiable condition. Between the 1870s and the beginning of World War I, a newly emboldened middle class of liberal reformers promoted the idea that poverty was a problem that transcended the moral failings of the individual poor, and that empirical research guided by expert knowledge could yield solutions to this socially destabilizing phenomenon. Part of a transnational network, progressives saw poverty as one aspect of a much larger economic transformation in modern life, one that was riven with periods of acute crisis, as well as the potential for previously unimaginable growth.